In this problem, we want to determine if the sample evidence indicates that less than 64% of the population believes that Alaska is a separate country. Now, in order to test this hypothesis or claim, first we found the null and alternative hypotheses. So the null hypothesis, since that always has to be an equal to statement, that's P is equal to 0.64. This is about a proportion or percentage of the population, so we have to use the parameter P. And then the alternative hypothesis, H1, is that P is less than 0.64. And that's what is stated in the claim itself. It says, does this indicate that less than 64% of the population believes that Alaska is a separate country? So that's our alternative hypothesis. Now, we have to enter our sample information into the calculator and find our test statistic and the p-value. So how I'm going to start, because this is about a population, about a proportion, first I click on Stat and go to Tests because we're doing a hypothesis test. And because it's about a proportion, I'm going to choose number 5, which is one prop z-test. So I just choose 5 on the keypad. And now we're in our hypothesis test. The first thing they ask you for is P0, which is, or P0, and that's the value from the null hypothesis. So in this case, that's 0.64. I'll just type that in. Next, we need the value of x. That's the number of successes in this problem. And for this problem, it says 180 people believe that Alaska is a separate country. That's what success is here. So we have 180 for x. N is the number in the sample, which in this problem is 300. So now I've entered the sample information and the value from the null hypothesis. The next thing the calculator wants me to write is what is the alternative hypothesis. Now prop here is the P in the alternative hypothesis. And my alternative hypothesis said that P, or prop, is less than 0.64. So I need to choose this option, less than P0. So I press the right arrow once, but I still haven't selected this. You can see that the not equal to, or two-tailed test, is still selected. So make sure you click on Enter, and now we're doing a left-tail test instead of a two-tailed test. I arrow down once more. Now I can choose either calculate or draw. I recommend that you choose draw because it's going to give you the two values that you want and not a bunch of information that you don't want. So when we hit enter, we get our graph. So this tells me that my test statistic is z is equal to negative 1.44 and my p-value is 0.0745. So now I have those values for my problem, and the next question is what is or are the critical values? So now I'm going to have to find that critical value by using the inverse norm. Because this is a one-tail test, we just use the value of alpha. So I'm going to get out of this window by clicking on second and mode. Now we're at our regular window. And I press second, vars, and we're choosing inverse norm, number 3. And alpha is 0.05. There we go. And when I click enter, then I get negative 1.64. Now this is a left tail test, So I use that negative value, and it's negative 1.64. If this had been a right tail test, I can still use the 0.05, but then I have to make the critical value positive. Now I can compare my test statistic with my critical value. The test statistic is not in the rejection region. And let's go back to our test again. And draw, so we can look at that distribution. Okay, so here's my test statistic, z equals negative 1.44. The critical value is negative 1.64, so that's a little bit further into the tail. So the rejection region is from here out into the tail. And my test statistic is not in that rejection region, so we will fail to reject the null hypothesis. And that concludes our test.